The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss, and Ambassador Cole took his first step onto the crystalline floor of Nexus Prime. The grand atrium stretched before him like a cathedral made of light and glass. Towers of living crystal rose toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into soft blue mist. Strange plants with silver leaves grew along the walkways. The air smelled clean and cold, like mountain snow. Stood still for a moment and took it all in. He was 63 years old, with silver hair cut short and eyes the color of storm clouds. His face carried the lines of a man who had seen much and forgotten nothing. He wore a simple black suit with a small Earth flag pinned to his chest. No medals, no decorations. He had earned many in his years as a soldier, but he had left that life behind long ago. He was a diplomat now. He was here to talk, not to fight. Two guards approached him. They were Eth, and species that stood 7 feet tall on 4 armored legs. Their bodies were covered in dark red chitin, and their heads held 6 black eyes that reflected like broken mirrors. They carried long energy lances that hummed with deadly power. Ambassador Cole, one of them said. Its voice was a harsh clicking sound translated by a small device on its throat. "You will follow us. The council awaits." Nodded politely. "Thank you, please lead the way." The guards turned and began walking, followed at a calm pace. He did not hurry. He did not show fear. He had learned long ago that alien species watched humans very carefully, looking for signs of weakness. He would give them nothing. As they walked through the station, saw members of dozens of different species. Some were tall and thin, with skin like polished metal. Others were short and round, covered in thick fur. A few floated through the air on invisible currents. All of them stopped to stare at him as he passed. Understood why. Humans were new to this part of the galaxy. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 200 years ago. In that time, they had spread to 40 colony worlds. They had built ships and stations and cities on planets that had been empty for millions of years. The elder species did not like this. They had ruled this region of space for 11,000 years. They saw themselves as wise and ancient and powerful. They saw humans as children who had found a dangerous toy. No, not children, something worse. Had read the intelligence reports. He knew what the council species said about humans when they thought no one was listening. They called humans aggressive, dangerous, a plague that spread too fast. Some called for containment. Others called for something more final. That was why was here. Humanity had applied for associate membership in the Galactic Council. It was a small step, but an important one. If humans could prove they were willing to follow galactic law, perhaps the elder species would stop seeing them as a threat. Perhaps. The guards led through a massive doorway into a smaller chamber. Here, several officials waited to process his arrival. They scanned him with devices that hummed and beeped. They checked his blood. They examined his clothes. They looked for weapons. They found nothing, carried no weapons. He was protected by diplomatic immunity. The council had guaranteed his safety. What the scans did not find, because they were not designed to look for it, was what flowed through his blood alongside his red cells and white cells. It had no name that the council would recognize. Inside the human military, it was called Project Prometheus. Every human who traveled beyond the solar system carried it. Every diplomat, every soldier, every colonist on every far-flung world. It was standard protocol, implemented after the Purge 15 years ago. Remembered the Purge well. He had been a colonel then, commanding a garrison on New Helsinki. The had come without warning. They had burned 3 human colonies to ash, 17 million people dead in a single week. Men, women, children, gone. The Galactic Council had done nothing. They were an elder species. Humans were not. The matter was considered internal. After that, Earth's leaders had made a decision. Humanity could not match the elder species in ships or soldiers or technology. They were too young, too small, too weak. But they could ensure that killing humans would never be free. They could ensure that any species that murdered their people would pay a price so terrible that none would dare try again. Project Prometheus was that price. The compound in his blood was completely harmless. It did nothing while he lived. Medical scans showed nothing unusual. It simply waited, dormant, patient. It would wait forever if it had to. But if died by violence, everything would change. Did not think about Prometheus as he followed the guards deeper into the station. He did not expect to die here. He was a diplomat under protection of galactic law. He had come to talk, to negotiate, to find a path toward peace. He believed in peace. He had seen enough war to know that nobody truly won. The guards brought him to a large circular room with a window that looked out into space. Stars glittered in the darkness like scattered diamonds. A planet hung in the distance, its surface swirling with purple clouds. "You will wait here," the guard said. "The council session begins in 6 hours. Food and water will be provided. Do not leave this room." Nodded, "I understand, thank you." The guards left, the door sealed behind them. Walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of humans lived their lives. They worked and loved and raised children and dreamed of the future. They had no idea that their survival might depend on what happened in this station over the next few days. Placed his hand against the cold glass. He thought about his daughter back on Earth and his granddaughter who had just turned 7. He thought about all the things he still wanted to do with his life. Then he pushed those thoughts aside. He had a job to do. He had to convince the most powerful beings in the galaxy that humans deserve to live. He turned from the window and sat down to review his notes. 6 hours was not much time, but it was enough. He would make them listen. He would make them understand. He had to. The council chamber was the largest enclosed space had ever seen. It was a dome of living light, stretching upward for hundreds of meters. The walls themselves seemed to glow, shifting through soft colors like the surface of a soap bubble. Floating platforms hung in the air at different heights, arranged in rings around a central point. Each platform held representatives of one of the 12 elder species. Stood alone at the center, on a small circular platform called the Petitioner's Stone. There was no chair, no table, just him, standing beneath the gaze of beings who had ruled the stars for longer than humans had possessed written language. He kept his back straight and his hands folded in front of him. He showed no fear. High Arbiter Hal spoke first. She was a species known for their long lives and their mastery of biological science. Her skin was translucent and could see the soft glow of 3 hearts beating inside her chest. She was over 2,000 years old, and she looked at the way a scientist might look at an insect under glass. "Ambassador Cole of the United Human Worlds," she said. Her voice echoed through the chamber, amplified by unseen technology. "You have been summoned before this council to answer for the crimes of your species." Felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Crimes, not application review, not diplomatic discussion, crimes. "I was told this session was to discuss humanity's application for associate membership," said. His voice was calm and steady. "I was not informed of any charges." "The charges are as follows," Hal continued, ignoring his words. "Illegal colonization of 17 worlds in contested space, aggressive territorial expansion beyond sanctioned boundaries, the unprovoked destruction of a HFY fleet in the new Helsinki system, and most serious of all, the refusal to submit human military technology for council inspection, in violation of Galactic Charter 7. Listen to each charge. He had prepared responses for all of them. He had documents, evidence, legal arguments. He had spent 3 years building humanity's case for membership. Now he understood that none of it mattered. This was not a negotiation. This was a trial, and the verdict had been decided before he arrived. Still, he had to try. "If I may respond to these charges," said. Hal waved one thin hand. "You may speak." Took a breath. The 17 worlds humanity colonized were listed as unclaimed in council surveys dating back 800 years. We filed proper settlement notices. We received no objections until after our colonies were established. He paused. I have copies of all relevant documents if the council wishes to review them. The surveys were outdated, a harsh voice interrupted. It came from a platform holding several ETH. Their leader, a massive creature with battle scars across his chitin, leaned forward. Those worlds were within ETH expansion zones. Your kind had no right to them. No expansion claim was filed, replied. Under galactic law, unclaimed worlds are open to settlement. Human law is not galactic law, the ETH snarled. Turn to face him directly. Then perhaps you can explain the hive fleet that entered the new Helsinki system without warning or declaration. 300 warships that refused all communication and began charging weapons within range of a civilian colony. We defended ourselves. That is not a crime under any law. The ETH's eyes blazed with hatred. You destroyed the fleet entire, 20,000 warriors. My brood brother commanded that fleet. Your brood brother was 3 hours from killing 6 million civilians, said quietly. We asked him to stop. We begged him to negotiate. He responded by opening fire. We did what we had to do. Silence fell over the chamber. Could feel the tension in the air. He knew he was walking a dangerous line, but he would not apologize for defending his people. High Arbiter Hal spoke again. And the matter of military technology. Why does humanity refuse to share its weapons designs with the Council? Because we have seen what happens when we are weak, said. 15 years ago, they destroyed 3 of our colonies. 17 million people died. We asked the Council for help. We asked for justice. We received neither. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each elder species representative. We will not give you the tools to destroy us. That is not stubbornness. That is survival. More silence. Some of the representatives shifted uncomfortably. A few would not meet his gaze. But it did not matter. Could see it in Hal's eyes. The decision was made. This council finds the United Human Worlds guilty of violations against galactic peace, she announced. The sentence is as follows. Humanity will withdraw from all territories beyond its home system within 1 standard year. Failure to comply will result in enforcement by combined council forces. She paused. Projected human casualties of resistance are total. We urge cooperation. Felt the words hit him like physical blows. They were not offering peace. They were offering extinction with extra steps. Pull back to Earth, give up everything humanity had built, and wait for the Council to decide their fate. No, that would never happen. May I respond? Asked. You may. He looked up at the floating platforms, at the ancient beings who had ruled unchallenged for so long. They saw humanity as insects, as pests to be controlled or eliminated. They could not imagine that the insects might bite back. If this council believes it can threaten humanity with extinction and receive anything but extinction in return, said slowly, then the council understands nothing about us at all. Hal's expression hardened. Is that a threat, Ambassador? It is a fact, replied. We are young, we are small. We are not wise like you, but we do not surrender, we do not submit, and we do not die quietly. If you come for us, you will pay a price you cannot imagine. That is not a threat. That is who we are. The High Arbiter raised her hand. The ETH guards that stood at the edge of the chamber moved forward, their weapons humming. Ambassador Cole, Hal said, you are hereby detained as a prisoner of war. You will be held until your government agrees to our terms. Did not resist as the guards surrounded him. There was no point. He was one man against a station full of enemies. But as they led him away, he felt strangely calm. He had said what needed to be said. He had warned them. They had not listened. Whatever came next was on their heads, not his. The cell was small and white and empty. 4 walls, a floor, a ceiling, and a thin mattress in the corner. A field of shimmering blue energy covered the doorway, humming softly day and night. There was no window, no clock, nothing to mark the passage of time except the arrival of meals pushed through a slot in the wall. Cole had been here for 3 days. He spent his time thinking. He thought about his family back on Earth, his daughter who worked as a teacher in New Geneva, his granddaughter who loved to chase butterflies in the garden and asked endless questions about the stars. He wondered if he would ever see them again. He thought about the Council's judgment. By now, the news would have reached Earth. The government would be meeting in emergency sessions. Admirals would be preparing the fleet. Politicians would be arguing about what to do next. Hoped they would find a peaceful solution. He truly did, but he knew the Council too well. They did not see humans as equals. They saw them as a problem to be solved. And the easiest solution, the one they had chosen 1,000 times before with younger species, was elimination. On the second day, visitors began to arrive. They came in ones and twos, representatives of various species who wanted to see the human up close. Some were curious, asking questions about Earth and human culture. Some were sympathetic, speaking in soft voices about how unfortunate the situation was. A few were openly hostile, making threats and insults through the energy barrier. Treated them all the same way. He was polite. He was calm. He answered their questions honestly. He did not beg or plead or show anger. One visitor was different from the rest. She was a scientist named, young by her species standards, with skin that glowed a soft green. She came on the 3rd day and stood at the barrier for a long time, just looking at him. "You are not afraid," she finally said. "Why?" Considered the question. "Fear does not help," he said. "It does not change what will happen, so I choose not to feel it." "Your species is strange," I said. "You are so fragile, so short-lived. Yet you spread across the stars as if you were immortal. You fight against enemies who should destroy you. You refuse to accept your place." "What is our place?" asked. "Below," she said simply. "All young species must learn this. The universe is old and it belongs to those who came before. Humanity must submit or be destroyed. There is no third option." Smiled slightly. "There is always a third option. Sometimes you just cannot see it until it is too late." I studied him for a moment longer. Then she turned and left without another word. That night could not sleep. He lay on the thin mattress and stared at the ceiling. Something was coming. He could feel it in his bones, the same instinct that had saved his life a dozen times during his years as a soldier. He was right. The energy barrier flickered and died just after midnight. Sat up, instantly alert. A figure stood in the doorway, huge and dark, its chitin armor absorbing the dim light. Warlord of the Eth Dominion. Recognized him from the trial. This was the one who had spoken of his brood brother, the commander of the fleet destroyed at New Helsinki. His hatred had been visible even through his alien features. Ambassador Cole said, his voice was like stones grinding together. "We meet again." Stood slowly, he did not back away. "Warlord, I did not expect a personal visit." "No," agreed, "you did not." He stepped into the cell, the barrier remained down, no guards followed him. "Do you know why I am here?" "I can guess." "My brood brother was called, we grew from the same egg cluster. We fought our first battles together. We were bonded in ways your species cannot understand." Moved closer. "Your ships burned him. Your weapons turned his fleet to dust. 20,000 warriors gone in an hour." "They were about to kill 6 million civilians," said quietly. "I am sorry for your loss, but I do not apologize for what we did." "No," said, "you would not. That is the problem with humans. You never know when to bow, you never know when you are beaten." He was very close now, towering over. "Your species will be ash within a cycle. The Council has decided. Your worlds will burn and your people will scatter like insects before the flame." Met his gaze without flinching. "Perhaps, perhaps not. The future is not yet written." Your future ends tonight, said. The council may want you alive as a hostage. I do not care what the council wants. I want justice. I want blood. His clawed hand shot forward and closed around his throat, lifting him off the ground. Did not struggle. He could not have broken that grip even if he tried. He simply hung there, looking into the alien's burning eyes. Any last words, human? Asked. Thought of little chasing butterflies, of Earth and all the world's humanity had built. Yes, he managed to say through the crushing pressure on his throat. Remember this moment. Remember you had a choice. Laughed a harsh clicking sound. I will remember nothing about you. You are beneath memory. Then he began to squeeze. The death was not quick, wanted to suffer, and he knew exactly how much pressure a human body could endure. He broke bones. He crushed organs. He made it last. Through it all did not scream. He refused to give the warlord that satisfaction. He thought of his family. He thought of home. He thought of the billions of humans who were counting on him. In the end, his last thought was an apology. He had tried to find peace. He had tried to make them understand. He had failed. But they would understand soon. They would understand very soon. Cole died on the floor of his cell, broken and alone. Looked down at the body with satisfaction. Then he called for servants to dispose of the remains. The body was taken to the incinerator. The cell was cleaned. All evidence was removed. By morning, it would be as if the human ambassador had never existed. Returned to his quarters, content. He did not notice the faint shimmer in the air around him, like heat rising from summer stone. He did not feel the invisible particles settling on his chitin, seeping into the gaps between his armor plates. He did not know that he was already dead. He just did not know it yet. Warlord woke on the 6th day after the murder feeling strange. There was an itch beneath his chitin, deep in the tissue where his armor met his flesh. He scratched at it, but the sensation only grew worse. By midday he could not stand. His legs had locked in place, the joints frozen solid. When his servants tried to help him, they found that his chitin had thickened, growing inward instead of outward. It was crushing his muscles, crushing his organs. He died screaming, his own body becoming his prison. The medical team that examined his corpse died within hours. They had touched him. They had breathed the air around him. That was enough. By the end of the first day, 17 ETH were dead. Their bodies had all failed in the same way, chitin growing wild and uncontrolled until it destroyed them from within. By the second day, the number was over 100. High Arbiter Hal received the reports with growing alarm. She ordered the detention level quarantined. She ordered all ETH on the station to report for medical screening. She ordered the science cast to find the cause. None of it helped. The thing that killed was not a disease. It was not a poison. Standard scans could not detect it. It existed on the boundary between biology and technology, a creation so sophisticated that the scientists could barely understand what they were looking at. It was alive in a way. It could think in a way. But its thoughts were simple, driven by a single purpose programmed into its very structure. Find the species that killed the host. Adapt, destroy, spread. The compound had been inside Cole's blood, dormant and harmless, waiting for the moment of his death. When crushed his throat, the compound activated. It read the genetic signature of the killer. It analyzed ETH biology, and then it began to design a perfect weapon against that species. It took less than an hour to complete the design. By the time left the cell, he was carrying billions of microscopic machines in his body, each one programmed to destroy ETH flesh. But the compound did not stop there. It spread through the air, through contact, through water. It found new hosts. It analyzed their genetics. When it found ETH DNA, it attacked. When it found something else, it learned. They were next. Dr. the young scientist who had visited in his cell, collapsed on the 3rd day. Her translucent skin had begun to harden. cutting off blood flow to her 3 hearts. She died in the medical bay, surrounded by colleagues who did not yet know they were infected too. Within a week, the compound had learned to kill Eth and 4 other council species. It spread through the ventilation system. It contaminated the water supply. It found its way into the food, the surfaces, the very light itself, riding on photons through the station's fiber-optic networks. Nexus Prime was dying. High Arbiter Hal called an emergency session of the Council. Of the 12 elder species, representatives of 8 were already showing symptoms. The chamber that had seemed so grand and powerful now felt like a tomb. "What is this thing?" demanded the Eth representative, a younger warrior who had taken its place. "Where did it come from?" "We do not know," admitted the head of the science cast. His skin had lost its glow. Dark patches were spreading across his body. "It adapts faster than we can analyze it. Every time we think we understand it, it changes." "It came from the human," Hal said quietly. She had realized the truth hours ago. It was inside him. We killed him, and this was his answer. Silence fell over the chamber. The elder species, who had ruled the stars for 11,000 years, sat in stunned disbelief. A single human, a diplomat they had dismissed as insignificant. He had carried their doom in his blood, and they had released it with their own hands. "Send a message to Earth," Hal ordered. "Tell them what has happened. Ask them how to stop it." The message was sent. The response came within hours. Fleet Admiral appeared on the. She was a small woman with gray hair and hard eyes. Behind her could see the command center of Earth's defense fleet, officers moving with quiet efficiency. "High Arbiter," said, her voice was cold, "we received your message." "Then you know what is happening," Hal said. "You know your weapon is killing us. Tell us how to stop it. We will negotiate. We will give you whatever you want." "You killed Ambassador Cole," said. "A man who came to you in peace, under your own guarantee of safety. You murdered him like an animal." "That was not sanctioned by the Council. It was the act of one individual. We will punish those responsible." "Is already dead," said. "So are most of the others who were involved. The compound is efficient that way." Hal leaned forward. "Please. Thousands are dying. Millions more will die if this spreads beyond the station." "It has already spread," said. 2 ships left Nexus Prime before your quarantine. One was headed for Eth Prime. The other 4, they will arrive within days. The color drained from Hal's translucent face. "You have killed us. You have killed us all." "No," said. "You killed yourselves. We simply made sure you could not kill us first." She paused. "Project Prometheus was created after the Purge. 17 million of our people burned alive while the Council did nothing. We swore that would never happen again. We could not match your fleets. We could not match your technology, but we could ensure that any species that murdered our people would share our fate." "This is genocide," Hal whispered. "This is deterrence," replied. "Every human who travels beyond Earth carries the compound, every single one. If you had let Ambassador Cole live, it would have remained dormant forever. He would have returned home, grown old, died peacefully in his bed, and you never would have known." Her eyes hardened. "You chose this. We did not start this war, Arbiter, but our dead finished them." The transmission ended. Hal sat in silence as the chamber emptied around her. The remaining council members fled to their ships, desperate to reach there before the plague caught up with them. They did not understand that it was already too late. The compound was inside them. They would carry it home themselves. The High Arbiter remained on her platform, looking out at the empty chamber. 11,000 years of civilization. 12 mighty species who had conquered the stars. All of it ending because they could not resist crushing something small. She thought about Cole, about the quiet dignity in his eyes as he stood before the council, about his final words of warning. They had not listened. Now they would learn. The silence took 14 months to become complete. It spread across the Orion spur like a slow tide. following the travel routes that the elder species had used for thousands of years. The compound moved from world to world, carried by fleeing refugees who did not know they were already dead. It adapted to each new species it encountered, learning their biology, designing their destruction. Some worlds fought back. The Eth burned entire cities, trying to sterilize the infection. The sealed themselves in underground bunkers, hopping to wait it out. The species that had destroyed 3 human colonies years ago tried to flee to the far edges of the galaxy. None of it worked. The compound was patient. It was thorough. It did not stop until its work was done. Humanity watched. Humanity waited. They had not fired a single shot. The human fleet stayed in defensive positions around Earth and the colony worlds. Admiral gave strict orders: no offensive action, no intervention, no rescue attempts. The compound could not distinguish between violent intent and mercy. Any human who entered an infected zone risked becoming a new trigger, spreading the plague even further. So they watched the sensor readings. They listened to the desperate transmissions that grew fewer each day. They tracked the spreading silence across the star maps. And they mourned. Not everyone on Earth celebrated the fall of the elder species. Many people felt sick at the scale of death. Billions of beings, most of whom had nothing to do with the Council's decision, were dying because of what a few leaders had done. Children who had never heard of humanity, workers who had never held a weapon, artists and scientists and farmers and teachers. All gone. Fleet Admiral addressed the United Human Worlds on the first anniversary of Cole's death. She stood before the cameras with tired eyes and a heavy voice. 1 year ago, Ambassador Cole was murdered by enemies who thought humanity was too weak to matter. Today, those enemies are gone. Their worlds are silent. Their fleets drift empty through the void. She paused. This is not a victory. This is a tragedy that did not have to happen. She looked directly into the camera. We did not create Project Prometheus because we are cruel. We created it because we learned at New Helsinki and Vega Colony and Barnard's Hope that the galaxy would not let us survive otherwise. We are small. We are young. We die easily. Her voice hardened. But we do not die alone. Never again. When the silence was finally complete, the colony ships launched. They went out not as conquerors, but as witnesses. Humans walked the empty halls of Nexus Prime, stepping carefully over the remains of those who had once ruled there. They cataloged what they found. They recorded everything. They tried to understand the civilizations that had flourished for so long and ended so quickly. They found great libraries filled with knowledge accumulated over. On Eth Prime, they found monuments to warriors who had fought in wars older than human civilization. On a dozen other worlds, they found art and music and poetry and science. They preserved all of it. They translated what they could. They built museums and archives so that nothing would be forgotten. They buried the dead with respect, even whose hatred had triggered the catastrophe, even the soldiers and officials who had voted for humanity's destruction. The dead were dead. Hatred served no purpose now. Cole was honored as a hero, though many who knew him said he would have hated that word. A monument was built on Earth, a simple stone pillar with his name and a single sentence. He tried to find peace. His daughter spoke at the dedication ceremony. She was calm and composed, though her eyes were red from crying. Father was a soldier who became a diplomat because he believed that talking was better than fighting, she said. He went to that station hopping to build a bridge between our species and theirs. He died still hopping. She looked out at the crowd. I wish he had succeeded. I wish none of this had happened. But I want you to know something about him. He did not want revenge. He did not want destruction. He wanted his granddaughter to grow up in a galaxy where humans did not have to be afraid. She paused. I think he would be sad today, but I also think he would tell us to move forward, to be better, to make sure that what happened to us never happens again to anyone. 10 years passed. 20. Humanity spread into the empty territories, building new colonies on worlds that had once belonged to the elder species. They did not erase what had come before. They built alongside it, incorporating alien architecture into their own designs, teaching alien languages in their schools. When the younger species began to emerge from the shadows, the ones who had been too small and weak to matter under the old council, they found humanity waiting with open hands. The Second Galactic Council was formed 30 years after the Silence. It was a smaller body than the first, made up of species who had watched the fall of the elder species with horror and learned from it. They approached humanity carefully, uncertain what to expect. The human representative who attended the first session was a young woman named Cole. She had her grandfather's gray eyes and her mother's calm strength. She wore a simple black suit with a small Earth flag on her chest. She carried no compound in her blood. Project Prometheus had been decommissioned years ago, sealed away in secure vaults, hopefully forever. Humanity no longer needed it. The lesson had been learned. But when the other species looked at her, at any human, there was something in their eyes that had not been there before. Respect, certainly, but also caution, and underneath it all just a trace of fear. Understood, she did not mind. The galaxy was a dangerous place. It rewarded the strong and destroyed the weak. Humanity had proven that they were not weak. They had proven it in the most terrible way possible. Now they had to prove something else. They had to prove that power did not have to mean cruelty, that strength could be used for protection, not destruction, that the future could be different from the past. Looked around the chamber at the representatives of a dozen young species. They were watching her, waiting to see what humanity would do with its new position. She smiled and began to speak. My grandfather came to a council like this one long ago, hoping to find peace. He failed, but I believe his hope was not wrong, only early. She spread her hands. We are here today to try again, to build something better, not an empire of fear, but a community of equals. It will not be easy. We will make mistakes. We will argue and disagree. She looked at each representative in turn. But we will do it together, and we will remember those who came before, both the good and the bad. We will learn from their wisdom and their failures. And maybe, if we are wise enough and brave enough, we will create something that lasts. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, the representatives began to nod. Outside the windows, the stars shone cold and bright, the same stars that had witnessed the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations. They would witness more. They always did. But for now, in this moment, there was hope. And that was enough.